The Hall of Ascendance was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose higher than most city towers, carved from a single slab of dark crystal that reflected every movement below. Columns shaped like coiled beasts lined the chamber, and at the far end, upon a tiered dais, sat the princess of the Aurelian dominion. Princess Calith Vera did not need to speak to command attention. Her presence did that for her. She was taller than most of her kind, her golden armor woven with living sigils that shimmered faintly as she moved. To the Aurelian people, she was more than royalty. She was proof of destiny itself, born into a lineage that had ruled half the sector for 1,000 years. Before her, representatives of dozens of species stood in orderly rows. Each one bowed low when her gaze passed over them. Some knelt. Some pressed their foreheads to the polished floor. All except one. Marcus Hale stood alone at the center of the chamber, hands clasped behind his back, spine straight, eyes level.
Human.
The murmurs started almost immediately. Calith noticed him at once. Human envoy, she said at last, her voice carrying effortlessly across the hall. Step forward. Marcus obeyed, his boots echoing sharply against the stone. When he stopped at the designated mark, he did not bow. Calith tilted her head, studying him as one might study an unfamiliar tool. Why do you not kneel? She asked, her tone curious rather than angry. Every being who stands before the Dominion shows proper submission. Marcus met her gaze. With respect, Princess, I represent Earth. I kneel to no one. The silence that followed was absolute. Several guards shifted their grips on their weapons. An Aurelian noble hissed softly in shock. Calith's eyes narrowed, not in rage, but intrigue. Submission, she said slowly, is the foundation of power. Those who know their place bring order. Those who refuse invite chaos. Marcus did not look away. On my world, power doesn't come from making others kneel. It comes from earning their trust. A ripple of disbelief spread through the chamber. Calith leaned forward on her throne. Trust is what the weak ask for when they lack the strength to command. Or, Marcus replied calmly, what the strong build so they don't have to command forever. The negotiations that followed were tense. Earth was the newest member of the Interstellar Accord, still considered a minor power, useful, resilient, but ultimately expendable. The Aurelians had already decided the terms: resource access, military oversight, and symbolic submission during all official proceedings. Marcus rejected the final condition outright. We won't kneel, he said again.
Not now.
Not ever. Calith watched him closely as the other delegates argued, threatened, and pleaded. The human did none of those things. He spoke plainly. He listened. And when pushed, he did not raise his voice. He simply refused. When the session ended, Calith dismissed the hall with a sharp gesture. Human envoy, she said. You will remain. The doors sealed shut behind the others. Marcus exhaled slowly, but his posture did not change. You are either very brave, Calith said, descending the dais, or very foolish. People back home say it's usually both, Marcus replied. She stopped a few steps away, towering over him. Up close, her eyes were striking, bright, sharp, and restless. Do you know what happens to those who defy me? She asked. They usually find out, Marcus said. But they also change things. For a long moment, Calith said nothing. You believe yourself my equal, she said finally. No, Marcus answered. I believe I'm responsible for my own choices. Just like you. That answer unsettled her more than Defiance ever had. Calith ordered Marcus confined, not to a cell, but to a guest chamber overlooking the city. It was meant as a display of mercy. a reminder that his fate rested entirely in her hands. Yet she found herself returning to the conversation again and again. No one had spoken to her that way before. The Aurelians were raised to obey. Power flowed downward, unquestioned. Calith herself had been taught that mercy was a tool, fear a necessity. And yet, when she watched recordings of human history, wars, revolutions, fragile alliances, she saw something disturbingly familiar. Humans did not kneel easily. They broke. They bled. They lost. But they rose again, often against impossible odds. Days later, a border alarm shattered the calm of the capital. A rival empire, the Threx Collective, had launched a surprise assault on a Dominion outpost. Calith's generals moved quickly, issuing orders, mobilizing fleets. Marcus was brought before her once more. "You will advise," Calith said. "Your species has experience with desperate wars." Marcus nodded. "We do." As strategies were discussed, something became clear. The Aurelians were powerful, but rigid. Their command structure allowed no deviation. When communications lagged, entire squadrons stalled, waiting for orders. Marcus spoke up. "Your captains need autonomy." A general scoffed. "You would let subordinates think for themselves?" "Yes," Marcus said. "That's how they survive." Calith hesitated, then nodded. "Try it," she ordered. The result was immediate. Aurelian ships adapted, improvised, and pushed the Threx forces back. Losses were minimized. The outpost held. For the first time, Calith saw her empire do something new. It won without fear. Later, as the stars drifted past the palace viewport, Calith stood beside Marcus in silence. "You defied me," she said quietly. "You embarrassed me before my court. And yet you strengthened my dominion." Marcus smiled faintly. "Funny thing about respect. It grows better when it's not forced." Calith turned to him. "All my life, I was taught that power meant others bending before me, that if they did not kneel, they would break. And now?" Marcus asked. She looked out at the stars. "Now I see that some beings bend the universe instead." The next day, the final accord was signed. There was no kneeling. Instead, Calith stepped down from her dais and extended her hand to the human envoy in full view of the court. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Marcus took her hand. From that moment on, everything changed. Ending. Years later, historians would argue about when the Aurelian dominion truly transformed. Some would say it was the war with the Threx. Others would point to reforms, new councils, shared authority. But Calith knew the truth. It began the day a human stood before her and refused to kneel. Power, she learned, was not submission demanded, it was dignity shared. And humanity, once again, proved that the strongest stance in the galaxy was standing upright.